What if some myths weren't really myths? What if creatures from old stories were based on something real? Today, we're exploring 10 creatures from legend that might actually exist. And the last one is the hardest to explain. Number 10. Dragon. Dragons appear in almost every culture. Massive, flying reptiles that breathe fire. Most people see them as pure fantasy. But ancient people often discovered massive bones without knowing what dinosaurs were. But here's where it gets weird. What if dragons were early attempts to explain fossils? Number 9. Mermaid. Mermaids are said to live in the ocean. Half human, half fish. Sailors reported seeing them for centuries. But long voyages caused exhaustion and confusion. But here's the twist. Animals like manatees can look human-like from far away, especially in the water. Number 8. Werewolf. A human that transforms into a wolf. Stories like this exist across the world. It sounds impossible, but there's a real condition that causes extreme hair growth, and another that causes aggression and animal-like behavior. But the story doesn't end there. What people feared might have been misunderstood humans. Number 7. Basilisk. A creature that can kill with a single look. Small, silent, deadly. It sounds unreal. But some snake venom acts extremely fast, and certain animals freeze when facing danger. But here's where it gets strange. Sometimes fear alone can stop movement completely. Number 6. Kraken. A giant sea monster that attacks ships. Sailors feared it for centuries. Massive tentacles rising from the ocean. But giant squids are real. Some grow to enormous sizes. But here's the twist. We've barely seen them alive. Most of their world is still unknown. Number 5. Wendigo. A tall, thin creature from northern forests. Connected to hunger and isolation. Stories describe it as something once human. But there's something real behind this. But here's where it gets disturbing. There are psychological conditions linked to extreme starvation and fear. The legend may come from real human behavior. Number 4. Loch Ness Monster. A long-necked creature in a deep lake. Seen by many. Photographed, but never proven. It feels mysterious. But here's the twist. Large eels or unknown animals can create similar shapes in water, and distance can distort what we see. Number 3. Thunderbird, a massive bird that controls storms, said to create thunder with its wings. It sounds impossible, but prehistoric birds were much larger than today. Some had wingspans far beyond modern eagles. But here's where it gets interesting. What if ancient sightings came from real giant birds? Number 2. Giant insects. Stories of enormous insects appear in many cultures. Bugs as big as humans. It sounds unreal. But millions of years ago, insects were much larger. Higher oxygen levels allowed them to grow. But the story doesn't end there. Nature has already shown us it's possible. The deep sea unknown. Something massive lives deep in the ocean. Not clearly seen, not fully understood. It doesn't chase, it doesn't hunt, it simply exists. But here's the reality. We've explored less than 10% of the ocean. And what we have found is already strange. But here's where it gets truly unsettling. Something could be down there, right now. Which one do you think is the most real? And which one would you never want to see? Because sometimes myths don't start as stories. They start as something real.
Which one do you think is the most real? Comment below, because the next creature we talk about might not be a story at all.